Good morning, Dan and Amy. So Trump National Economic Director Gary Cohn and his Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin took to the stage yesterday to roll out the top lines of his structural tax reform plan. And I got to say, it lived up to Trump's advanced billing. As prone as he is to hyperbole, here's some of the highlights as explained by Cohn. From 7 rates to 3.
We are going to cut taxes and simplify the tax code by taking the current 7 tax brackets we have today and reducing them to only 3 brackets. A 10% bracket, a 25% bracket, and a 35% bracket. We're going to double the standard deduction so that a married couple won't pay any taxes on the first $24,000 of income they earn.
In addition to that, cutting the capital gains tax, eliminating the Obamacare investment tax, eliminating the estate tax, eliminating the alternative minimum tax.
Therefore, we are going to return the top capital gains tax rate and dividend rate to 20%, repealing the harmful 3.8% Obamacare tax on dividends and capital gains. That tax has been a direct hit on investment income and small business owners. We're going to repeal the death tax. The threat of being hit by the death tax leads small business owners and farmers in this country to waste countless hours and resources on complicated estate planning to make sure their children aren't hit with a huge tax when they die. No one wants to see their children have to sell the family business to pay an unfair tax.
And Treasury Sec Mnuchin made the objective of this plan very clear.
Our objective is to make U.S. businesses the most competitive in the world.
And I think this plan substantially does it now. I know your friends reacted to the...
Oh, they said Trump is just doing this to line his own pocket.
Right.
It's all about Trump and helping his rich friends.
Now... Trump, they also allege, won't release his tax returns because he doesn't pay any taxes.
Right.
So he won't release his tax returns because he doesn't pay any taxes, and these tax cuts are so he can reduce the tax burden he doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's come full circle, Dan.
No, those two things are not, well, those are just, those are mutually exclusive positions, but that's the entertainment the left provides intellectually. For more on this topic... With everything coming up roses inside the Beltway all of a sudden, Obamacare 2.0 signed on, Obamacare replaced 2.0 signed on by the Freedom Caucus, this big tax cut package. Happy days are here again in D.C. Congressman Peter Roskam joins us now for more. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
And Amy, good morning. How you doing?
How about it? What's your reaction to what was proposed by the Trump administration on structural tax reform yesterday?
My reaction is very positive. These are themes that we've been talking about in the House blueprint, for example, and there's a lot of alignment. There's some adjustments here and there, but I think the idea that the Trump team is now stepping forth with their own plan, recognizing that now is the time for the legislative process to fully engage, well, let's go. And what you're going to see over the next several months is reconciling and bringing together everybody so that we're talking about one plan, not competing plans, but that these get developed into one plan. And, the fundamental theme that Cohn and Mnuchin were talking about yesterday was growth, to restore growth and buoyancy to the economy, and fundamental tax reform is the name of the game to do it.
Are you concerned that it'll add on to our national debt? Or that's just a fallacy? So, you are concerned? Okay.
Yeah, so here's the part that we've got to discuss as a country. On the Republican side, we've got to make a decision about this, and here's one way to think about it. The best tax policy that we can get is permanent tax policy. One of the weaknesses that we have in our country is we have temporary tax policy and permanent spending policy.
Right.
Let's switch that around. Let's have permanent tax policy. Okay, in order to get permanent tax policy and to influence more behavior, that has to be paid for. You gotta get rid of loopholes. You gotta do the hard work of tax reform as opposed to just kind of doing some of the easy stuff. So the hard work is worth doing. It's worth pursuing. It's worth really investing a lot of time and energy into because you get permanent. Let me make one other quick point. Think about it. If what we're trying to do is say to American corporations, American businesses, We want you to reshore your manufacturing operations. We want you to bring your research and development facilities back here. We want to influence that. Then those decision makers are going to be making those decisions. But if they say, hey, this whole thing's going to expire in 10 years, I'm not going to reshore a whole production line. I'm not going to do a research and development facility. You take my point, that we need permanent policy, and you get a lot more growth with permanent policy, and you got to pay for it.
What about permanent policy on the spend side, though? I mean, there's a lot of...
Amen to that. Look,
yeah.
The House over the past 6 years has passed budgets that have said, we'll take on Medicare, the biggest sacred cow of all time, basically, and we passed budgets, expanded our majorities, the talking class or the chattering class, that if you guys take on Medicare in your budget and propose, really significant changes, you're going to lose the majority. Turned out not to be true. So in the Margaret Thatcher admonition, first you win the debate, then you win the vote. We won the debate on Medicare. Unfortunately, President Trump, during the course of his campaign, said he's not willing to touch Medicare. So that's disappointing, because I think that that's where we could do a lot of saving in terms of updating things. But I take your point. Got to revisit these programs. And the ideal is to get the spending side under control and then raise revenues to meet real needs as opposed to the other way around.
So, Congressman, what do you think that this new tax plan means for the middle class, or say a family of four with $60,000 a year?
Look, it's good news. It's good news for everybody up and down, because you're collapsing these rates down. We're proposing, and I think the Trump team proposes this too, keep the mortgage interest deduction, keep the charitable deduction, refashion some of these things in terms of incentivizing people, using tax incentives for retirement savings, for example. But a family of four with $60,000, this is good news for them. There's no question about it.
And the budget shutdown, or the government shutdown. That is not. There's no such thing. It's a temporary furlough of non-essential workers, with 82% of the federal government still operating on autopilot. But the hysteria about that, which I know is not going to come to pass, particularly since Trump walked away from the funding in the immediacy for the border wall. What about the continued funding of Planned Parenthood there? Why is that not been stripped out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big problem, and you can do Planned Parenthood funding on a year-by-year basis, and this is one of the areas that there's going to be a lot of debate and discussion today, even within the next several hours. So it's not a foregone conclusion that everything moves forward as people perceive it to be right now.
But that's something that should be removed, because that was a promise that Republicans made.
No question about it. And I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Well, why aren't members of the Freedom Caucus demanding that?
Look, it's hard to speak for every member of Congress or for every member of the Freedom Caucus or anybody. But the idea is that there's so many moving parts right now. You got this government shutdown thing, you've got tax policy, you've got health care, and there's I think what the White House is now trying to do is fundamentally interact with Capitol Hill in new ways. And I think the White House was fairly dismissive in the past about the kind of the undertows and the cross currents trying to get something done on Capitol Hill, and they're trying to prioritize as well. So that's the state of play on a Thursday morning in Washington.
Are they improving their game? It seems to be, with the Freedom Caucus endorsing Obamacare Replace 2.0 yesterday, and seeming to put that on a glide path to passage out of the House and over to the Senate, and then the process continues.
Well, I'm a little counterintuitive on this. After the bill failed, my view was dump the bill. And we're in this situation now because congressional Republicans, myself included, never passed out the bill to which we aspire. We never passed out like the great health care alternative because there was not a conservative consensus on health care. And rather than doing the hard work of driving and creating consensus with legislative text, we all took the easier path. And the easier path was criticize what we don't like about Obamacare, and there's so much to criticize. There was a lot to talk about. and then talk in more generalities about the things that we do like, but never driving to consensus. I think had we done that hard work then, we'd be better off now. Now we could pass out the bill to which we aspire and let the United States Senate explain to the world when it is that they use 51 votes and when it is that they use 60 votes, because I can't explain it. It's ridiculous. So let the Senate marinate in the Senate rules and let them, rather than being basically professional critics, let them be the ones that explain, this and reveal this Senate rule to the rest of the world. So, and now we're sort of falling into this new trap, in my view, and the new trap is another element of a bill that's negotiated by a small group of people. And, where's the text of the bill? Where's the hearings on the bill? Where's the language of the bill? You take my point. It's not a particularly good scene.
Before we let you go, I'm going to keep harping on this. I know last time we spoke, you and other members of Ways and Means had sent a letter to the White House about IRS Commissioner John Koskinen and Lois Lerner and the underlying issue of the IRS's abuses of Americans. Seems like a good time to revisit this with a structural tax package being proposed. Where does that stand?
I wholeheartly agree. The best thing is for two things to happen. One, President Trump should fire John Koskinen. He serves, Koskinen, the commissioner of the IRS, serves at the pleasure of the president. The president can simply dismiss him. We've not heard from the White House after we've asked him to do that. The second thing is we need the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, to review and take up this case against Lois Lerner. The statute of limitations has not lapsed. The chairman of the Ways and Means Committee and I wrote formally to the Attorney General, and we've not heard back. So check in the mailbox, but no replies yet.
All right. He is Congressman Peter Roskam, of course, Republican from Illinois' 6th Congressional District out in the Western Burbs. Peter, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.